Now, oftentimes there's a situation where there's a failure in the ministry. Maybe the key leader has fallen into some kind of immorality, or maybe financial problems, or people problems, relationship problems, control problems. There's times when the leader needs to be removed. Sometimes it's their own doing that removes them. Sometimes people have to step in and remove them. And we've had to do that. I've been involved in other stories like that, and you've heard stories all around the world like that, where suddenly the leader had to be removed. And that is not succession. Boy, yeah, that's replacement. In that case, you just do your best, and the goal is to recover the ministry and to get the vision and the purpose back on track. Also keeping in mind that there has to be a goal and an opportunity and a plan for the person or the persons, whoever it was that failed, to get back on track with what God has called them to do too. See, nothing's ever lost unless we give up. So it's very, very important as you build the ministry to put into place some strategy, some clear direction in case something like that happens. And I've often asked myself, do I have in place the people and the understanding in case I ever fell? Now, something you want to put in place before that is ways to make sure you never fail or that you never fall, right? And that has to do with the way we work together as covenant brothers and sisters. In the case that something drastic happens, it could be even a health issue or something that knocks somebody out suddenly, or an accident, a bad accident. But then who steps in? And here's where you have to be careful that who steps in does not suddenly see an opportunity to gain the control of the assets of the ministry, to gain control of the church, or to gain control of that ministry. But that you've got people in place that really have a heart and have an understanding that what we want to maintain and what we want to save is the vision and the purpose and the mandate and the culture and those kind of things. That's what we want to maintain. That's what we want to protect. And in cases of like a great failure or a great accident or tragedy, it's almost like you're starting over. But what you want to do is you just want to have a really good group of people that are willing to pray together, hear the heart of God, and say, God, what do you want? How can we put this back together? And let's work on doing it. Because the truth is that the promise and the momentum is still in that thing. So just because the pastor of a church fails doesn't mean the church has to fail. Okay, the promise and the momentum is still there. It's in the people. And a lot of it was built by that pastor. And you want to continue to honor that. But you want to find a way through that will get back on the track of right succession, of proper succession. Succession means transferring some entity from one generation to another generation. Okay, now we know it's to the next generation, and we know what it is that we're transferring. We're transferring the culture and the vision and all of those kind of things. If we have those things clear in our minds and our hearts, it's very helpful when it comes to discerning. Because you got to wonder sometimes, like, how did that guy get in there? Right? How did that guy wiggle his way into some place or some position in the ministry where he's counter to the culture that we've got, and he's got his own vision and his own agenda? And we can be discerning by the words that come out of people's mouths more than anything else, and of course by their actions, and of course by their reputation. When we're talking about succession, obviously we're talking about the apostolic father-son thing, where we've known these guys since they were born again or born into our family or whatever it was, that it's a long term. So anybody that just came lately, man, just don't even think about it. It's just not worth it. It's just, your chances are like 1 out of 100 that that's going to be a good person to pass on something to. The only time that people do that is when they're desperate. They'll do it when they're desperate because they don't have anybody that's like a son. But honestly, the only time I've ever seen anybody pass on ministry or responsibilities or ministry equity to someone who's come lately, right, hasn't been there for a long time, is just simply because they don't have any sons that are stepping up and following. So let's make it a goal, an intentional goal, that we would impart vision into our kids or the next generation, or the ones that we're raising up, the right people, the ones that have been there and that have been faithful. And let's give them opportunities to expand and spread their wings and try things and grow, so that when it's time to pass the entity on, to pass the vision on, that there are people that are ready, and the more the better. So here's some things that you'll never hear from a true son or a daughter. that are very discerning, and these are red flags. And so if when you hear these things come up, you're like, uh-oh, problem here. Okay, the first one is, when do I get a raise? How much money do I get? What position do I get? Which office will be mine? Or if you're living in the jungle, do I get an electric guitar and a motorbike? And that's a revealing of the motivation, which is a total wrong motivation. Another thing you really want to watch for is people that are really good at finding problems but not solutions. If someone's going to run this vision into the next levels, into the next expansion, they're going to have to be problem solvers, not problem finders. So this is a huge one. You've got people that are always coming with a problem or with a criticism. They come into you with a criticism, with criticisms of other people. They're also criticizing you behind your back. You don't want a person that's critical at all. Boy, I tell you what, they've got to be president material. I would say prime minister material, but we got a terrible prime minister right now. So do some of the other countries. Well, Sri Lanka doesn't have one right now. Man, oh man. See, because that just bugs us when the leader is corrupt or wrong motivated or selfishly motivated. Okay, I'm always looking for people that are willing to do the dirty jobs and willing to do things without being asking, picking up the litter, all those little things. I mean, those little things are really the big thing. Someone who carries a smile and a joy and a good greeting and they're just happy to see you. And someone who has a habit of encouraging other people and just encouraging to be around. I mean, that's the making of a leader. And one thing that really bugs me is when they use the wrong personal pronouns. Yeah, I'm not talking about transgenderism. I'm talking about when they say things like, my church, my ministry, I'm gonna do this, I've got that. The right pronoun is we, it's ours. We're working together on this. Even when I was alone, I never said mine or I. Always find people to include. So not only someone that encourages people, but this will kind of follow suit, is that they'll be well respected, they'll be liked, people will like them. You don't want anybody in leadership who has a lot of enemies. We all have enemies. But if the enemies are on the inside rather than the outside of the ministry, then it's a big problem. Okay? If we've got enemies on the outside, there's nothing you can do about that. It's not your jurisdiction. But someone who has enemies on the inside of the ministry, inside of the team, is not fit to be in leadership.